out before we get started. But tonight I want to talk to you about releasing your expectations, because here's what I know. Oftentimes we set out to make some things happen, and we have a certain expectation in our mind as far as how it should happen. And so we believe that the steps should be A, B, C, D, E, and that we're going to follow a specific amount of steps so that we can get to the outcome. But here's what I've come to realize, that a lot of times it doesn't quite happen the way that we would expect it to. It doesn't quite happen the way that we think it would. And so we got to be willing to release our expectations. And so tonight's message is really about you releasing your expectations and stepping in and doing that thing and acting from a place of faith and understanding that the story may unfold so much more differently than what you expected and what you thought in your mind. And so, of course, let me give a couple of quick shout outs real quick. Hey, Carmen Gonzalez, I see you, Carmen, Master Storyteller, Carmen. Hey, Carmen, I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Carmen is tuned in from Hollywood, Florida. I happen to also be in Hollywood, Florida. Hey, Carmen, good to see you. And once again, I want to welcome you to the Thursday night Show for Your Life Motivational Live Stream. And so tonight's message is called Release Your Expectations. And so, you know, what I believe happens to so many of us, there's something that we set out to do, right? Something that we set out to accomplish. And so I don't know what it is that you set out to accomplish, but chances are you have a certain expectation in your mind as far as how things should work out, or the steps that are going to happen, and who you're going to connect to, and what the process is going to look like. And what I find oftentimes is that the process of accomplishing our goals and our dreams and the way that things come to realization oftentimes looks absolutely nothing like what we put in our mind and what we put in our head. And so what I find is that oftentimes, because of the fact that we have a certain expectation in our mind, we tend to literally go ahead and throw in the towel a little bit prematurely. And so that's one of those things that I want you to start thinking about. And so tonight's message is release your expectations. So if you would, as you're jumping in right now, do me a quick favor. Go ahead and let me know what state you're dialing from. Let me do this too. Before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I let some people know I'm doing here. And so if you would just do the same, you get an opportunity right now. If you got some people that you want to invite to go ahead and join us, this would be a perfect opportunity for you to go ahead and invite them to join us tonight. But tonight's message is called Release Your Expectations. And of course, I want to thank you so much for joining us. So if you would just give me one quick second. Technology is great when it works. Let me tell you that. So just give me a little quick second here, and we're going to go get ahead and start it on tonight's message. But tonight's message is called Release Your Expectations. Release your expectations, because here's one of the things that I've come to realize is that oftentimes that we literally, listen carefully, we literally have something that we set out that we really want to make happen, and then we put it in our mind exactly how things are going to work out. And so maybe perhaps you can relate to that. There's something you've been wanting to make happen. You've been thinking about writing a book. You've been thinking about starting a business. You've been trying to figure out how to sort of make a transition to get to another stage in your life. And you literally have put it in your mind exactly, this is the game plan and this is how things are going to work out. But let me tell you, life has a sense of humor, and things don't always work out the way that you thought that they would. Oftentimes it's going to look so different than what you put in your mind. You have no idea. And so I believe that in order to keep you from literally, listen carefully, to keep you from quitting prematurely, to keep you from getting to that place. Absolutely, absolutely. And so to keep you from that place where you end up throwing in the towel prematurely, because here's what I believe. I believe oftentimes we throw the towel in prematurely because we set out on a goal, we set out on something that we're hoping to make happen. And then once we start the process, it doesn't look anything like we thought in our minds, right? And so we say to ourselves, you know, I'm going to start the business, and by year one, this is what it's going to look like. By year two, it's going to look like this. By year five, it's going to look like this. And now you're in year three of your business. And as you look at your business, it looks nothing like what you envision in your mind. Or you set out to yourself, you say, listen, this is a specific goal that I'm going after, and this is exactly what it's going to look like. These are the people that I'm going to connect with. These are the steps that are going to happen. And I tell you, oftentimes it is going to look nothing like what you thought it was going to look like. And so what I believe that in order to save us some grief and to keep us from throwing in the towel prematurely, and to make sure that we literally maintain the course and that we actually realize our goals and our dreams, we got to be willing to release our expectations. And that's why tonight's message is about releasing your expectations. So before I get a deep dive, I know I've been telling you what we're going to talk about tonight, but I just want to make sure that everybody's on board. As you know, we've got a conference call going on. That's the earpiece you see in my ear. We also have some people who are tuning in via YouTube. And of course, we have those of you who are tuning in right now via Facebook Live. And so I'm going to go ahead and dive right on into tonight's message. And so if you got a pen and a notepad, I want you to grab it, but I want you to lean in a little bit, because here's what I want to share with you. This message is specifically for those of you, you have something that you've been wanting to accomplish, something that you are setting out to do, that you've been sitting on this thing for a while, or you're already in the process of making this thing happen. And so right now, as you're in this process, as you're on your journey, you're looking at what you've produced. You're looking at the circumstances. You're looking at what's going on in your life. And when you think about what is actually happening and what you envision in your mind, what you notice is that there's some disparity. In other words, there's a difference. And that's where the frustration begins to show up. That's where we literally start second guessing ourselves. That's where we start entertaining the idea of actually quitting. That's when we find ourselves getting frustrated. Is in that gap when we are in the process of trying to accomplish our goals and our dreams, and the current circumstances and what is happening right now currently in our lives is not consistent with what we expected, with our expectations, with what we envisioned. And so that's where so much of the frustration begins to come forth. And so what I need you to understand is this, is that in order for you to really lean in order for you to really be able to accomplish your goals and your dreams and not throw in the towel prematurely, you have to get to that place where you're willing to release your expectations. You hear me? Listen carefully. You got to be willing to release your expectations. Now, listen carefully. I'm not telling you to release your goals and your dreams. I'm not telling you to have big goals. I'm not telling you to not have a big vision. I'm not telling you to have some level of expectation of the things that you want to accomplish in your life. But I'm talking about the steps on from where you are right now to how you're going to actually accomplish those goals and your dreams, how you're going to actually make those things happen. I want you to release the expectations of what the process is going to look like, of how you're going to get from A to Z. Because that is where we get frustrated. That is where we decide to start throwing in the towel. And that is where ultimately, if we could just get our minds around it and learn to really just begin to trust the process and operate just from a place of belief, we'll be able to save ourselves so much grief and so much frustration. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because I sort of think back and I'm thinking about some things that have happened for me in my life with some goals and some dreams that I've wanted to accomplish. And I started thinking about when I first started my journey of becoming a speaker and a trainer and a coach. And I had all these expectations as far as how things were going to work out, right? And so I said to myself, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get some training. Then I'm going to go ahead and create a website. And then I'm going to have my speaker one sheet. And then I'll start coming up with my coaching programs. And then I'll start sending out flyers and brochures to different corporations and companies. And then after they receive my flyers and brochures, then I'm going to get opportunities and so forth. And let me tell you, you could throw all of that out the window because my journey has looked nothing like that. If anything, everything that was exactly opposite of what I thought things were going to be like is exactly what has become my reality. And so what I want you to start thinking about is that whatever it is that you're in the process right now of pursuing, there's a strong probability that when you first decided to start off, you sort of had a thought in your mind as far as what the process was actually going to look like. And so when you first start off and you said, I'm going to start this business, you said, hey, this is what I was going to do the first year. This is what I'm going to do the second year. This is what it's going to look like. When you set out, you said you want to become a coach, you want to become a speaker. When you set out and you said you wanted to write the book, whatever it is that you set out to do, that you're going to go back and get the degree, that you're going to lose the weight, that you're going to become debt free, whatever it is that you had set out to do, chances are when you first set out to do it, you created some expectations in your mind as to what the process was actually going to look like. And newsflash, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but oftentimes what you set out in your mind, the process itself looks absolutely nothing like that. And so I tell you, when I first started off, I created this website, and I started working on my speaker one sheet. That's like a one sheet brochure for yourself as a speaker. I started thinking about what my coaching programs are going to look like. And then I started sending out emails and looking for opportunities to literally be able to go in and speak to a major corporation. And I'm telling you, after sending out brochures and trying to figure out the process and doing what I thought was going to happen, which literally bared no fruit for me, I'm telling you that when I got to that point, I started to get really frustrated. But here's what I want you to understand, that lo and behold, out of nowhere, I got a phone call from one of my friends. My friend is an engineer, and she was working at the time for a major, major, major corporation. And that corporation is responsible for literally building some of the engines that go into some of the airplanes that we fly on, commercial airplanes, and some of the engines that go into some of the spaceships that go literally out of space. Okay. And so we're talking about a major multi-billion-dollar corporation. And literally my telephone rings and my friend gives me a call and she says, Andy, listen, she said, we have an event coming up and they're looking for a speaker. And I know that, you are just starting off your speaking career and so forth. And literally, I told them that they need to bring you in. And so I'm telling my friend, wait a second. You told them to bring me in as a speaker? She said, yeah. I said, well, listen, you've never heard me speak. She says, I know I've never heard you speak, but you can deliver a message, right? I said, yeah. But I mean, this is a major corporation. She said, yeah, actually, the event that we're going to bring you in to speak in, last year, the gentleman who came in to speak was one of the first Black astronauts. I said, wait a second. Last year, the guy who came in to speak was one of the first Black astronauts. And you're going to follow up last year's speaker with Andy Henriquez, who literally has just started his speaking career. And she says, yeah, don't you want this opportunity? I said, yeah, absolutely, I do. But this is not the way that I thought it was going to happen. This is not what I envisioned. I mean, this is ridiculously amazing. And this is so amazing for me to be able to say that I'm about to deliver a speech for this company, but never in a million years did I think it was going to happen like this, because in my mind, I was going to have to start speaking for several years and start building my platform before I could ever land a speaking engagement with a company to this magnitude. And so I was just completely blown away. But here's what I want you to understand. And here's what I want you to realize for you, that there are some things that you're setting out to do that in your mind, you're saying to yourself, you know what, this is something I'm hoping that's going to happen 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. Or there's some things that you're setting out to happen and you're thinking to yourself that first I got to do this. And then after I do this, the next step is this. And then after I do this next step, the next step is this. But here's what I want you to realize, that you have no idea. Something that you maybe have said to yourself that's going to happen 5 years from now, the opportunity might present itself next month. Something that you think is going to happen next month may not happen for you for another 3 years. And so what I want you to understand is that where the frustration begins to surface is when we start comparing in our mind, listen carefully, when we start comparing in our mind what we thought the process was going to look like, what we expected the journey to look like, versus what it actually looks like. And so what I need you to understand is this: when there's the disparity, that's where the frustration begins to come in. That's where we start thinking about throwing in the towel. When things are not happening on our timeline, when we start getting frustrated, when we are looking around and the results that we're producing is not necessarily the results that we thought we were going to produce. And that's where the frustration begins to lie. And what I need you to understand is that there needs to be a major step on your behalf. And what you need to do is release your expectations. So do me a little quick favor right there in the comment section. Just do me a favor real quick. Just put hashtag release, because I need you to just simply get this. If you can go from just simply trying to judge the process and becoming so fixated on exactly how things are going to work out and simply operate from a place of belief that they will work out. Listen carefully. There's a big difference there. If you can go from that place of being so fixated as far as what the process is going to look like, where you say to yourself that first I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. If you can just simply learn to release yourself, listen carefully, if you can release yourself from what you believe that that process is going to look like, and if you could just shift your focus to simply believing that it is going to work out for you, you will be surprised how things will begin to show up, how connections will begin to manifest themselves, how opportunities that you thought were going to be so difficult will begin to show up so easily for you, and how so much of the frustration that you experienced throughout your journey will begin to go away. And I'm telling you, the reason why we get so frustrated is because of the mere fact that our expectation of what the process was going to look like tends to be so different from what the journey actually is. And so one of the things that we have to learn to do is we got to allow the story to unfold. You see, what you got to do is you got to have the dream, you got to have the vision and set out to execute the vision, but you got to allow the story to unfold. You got to allow things to happen. You've got to just release yourself from how they're going to happen and just start putting in the work and allow them to happen. And so what will happen is things will begin to reveal themselves and amazing things will begin to happen for you that you wouldn't even believe. You know, I even think about, I was having a conversation with somebody a little earlier today, and I was thinking about some of the most amazing opportunities that I've had in the past like 5 years. And I'm looking back at some extraordinary corporations and large companies that I've had the opportunity to speak for, and some really amazing opportunities that I've taken advantage of. And I look back and I was telling my friend, I said, you know what, it is so hard for me to say that for this particular opportunity, this is exactly what it is that I did. I did this, and I did this, and it resulted in the opportunity. So many times the opportunity came my way in a way and in a manner that I totally did not expect. And so I think about one of my clients that I've had the opportunity to work with is Bacardi. Bacardi is the alcohol company that you could think of. And so, I've had a couple of conversations from some of my peers, and they're saying, Andy, how did you get Bacardi as a client? How did you land them as a client? Did you send them some videos of you speaking? Did you send them your speaker one sheet? Did you send them your speaker packet? I mean, who did you connect with? Who did you network to make that thing happen? And lo and behold, when I look back at how that opportunity happened, it just so happened to be that there was an executive at Bacardi who basically got put over a very special program that was going to require that she get out and speak in front of different audiences. And out of all of the people that she could put in a phone call to just simply ask about potentially finding a coach and somebody that could help her with tightening up her message and tightening up her story, she happened to call somebody that I had already worked with. She happened to call somebody that was a past client. And then that past client said, oh my goodness, you're looking for somebody to help you with your story. You're looking for somebody to help you with your message. I know a gentleman, I had the opportunity to work with him. His name is Andy Henriquez. You need to go ahead and give him a call. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do the introduction. My past client made the email introduction. I then got an opportunity to go ahead and work with that executive at Bacardi one-on-one. As a result of working with that executive at Bacardi one-on-one, there became another major opportunity at Bacardi for a large event. And that executive, because she had the opportunity to work with me one-on-one, said, hey, I know who would be an excellent speaker for this conference that we're doing. There's a gentleman I had the opportunity to work with one-on-one. His name is Andy Henriquez. And I'm telling you, I remember the day of showing up for that conference, and this literally being a conference where the theme was actually about empowering women, and all of the other speakers were women. And I'm the only male speaker, the only male lineup in this speaker lineup. And I'm telling you right now, I so wish that I could tell you that the way that this opportunity happened was as a result of somebody going to my website, somebody looking at one of my speaker videos, or as a result of me sending in my speaker packet. That is not the way it happened. And so it did not look anything like what I thought the process was going to be. But here's what I can tell you, that all the while, even though I didn't know what the process was going to look like, I believed that I personally could realize an opportunity like that. I believe that an opportunity like that would eventually come my way. And so here's what I want you to get. This is where I really need you to get this. What I need you to get this, is that your job, your responsibility is to simply believe. Your job is to simply have the vision. Your job is to simply think about these big, amazing goals and these visions that are so big and so amazing that they frighten you. But what is not your responsibility is to figure out exactly how it's going to happen. What you need to do is be very, very mindful of not trying to create the storyline yourself as to how it's going to happen, because that is what makes many people suffer from pre-Q. And if you wonder what PQ is premature quitting. You hear me? Premature quitting. That is when you set out to make something happen and you're starting going through the process and you're encountering some frustration in the process, you're encountering some difficulty in the process, and things aren't quite working out the way that you thought that they would. And so you thought they were going to work out one way and they're happening another way. And so when you compare in your mind the way that you thought it was going to work out and the way things are going at the moment, that is what leads to frustration, because you had a preset expectation in your mind as to what the journey was going to look like. You had a preset expectation in your mind of what the process was going to look like. And when it looks nothing like that, that is what leads to frustration. And that's what starts allowing that little voice to start popping up in your head that starts trying to convince you and start trying to talk you out of your goals and your dreams, start trying to talk you out of things that you should be doing. And so here's what I want you to get. At some point, you've got to be willing to just simply release your expectations and get to that place where you just simply believe. Somebody do me a favor right now, and in the comment section, just put hashtag believe. That is your sole responsibility, to believe that you can take the business and make it a multiple six-figure business, to believe that you can disrupt the marketplace, to believe that you can create a best-selling book, to simply believe that you can become this amazing speaker, this amazing coach, to believe that you can change the legacy of your last name and change the landscape of your family. Your job is to simply believe. That is it. You don't have anything else that you're responsible for doing. You've got to simply believe. And I'm going to tell you, here's where the pitfall is. The pitfall is when you set the goal, you set the dream, you set the vision, and then you start creating a storyline in your head as far as what it's going to look like, right? You start saying, this is what it's going to look like. This is what step one is going to be. This is what step two is going to be. And listen, most of the time, it looks absolutely nothing like that. And we just got to accept the fact that oftentimes it's not going to look anything like we thought it was going to look. I'm going to tell you right now, chances are you've probably had something that you were setting out to accomplish, something that you were hoping to make happen, and it actually came to fruition, but the way that you thought it was going to happen, it looked nothing like it. And so you thought that you were going to have to work hard and the process was going to be like this. And lo and behold, somebody opened the door, your phone rang, you met the right person, and now all of a sudden, this thing that you wanted to make happen happened at lightning speed. And you had no idea that it was going to work out that way. Let me tell you right now, whatever it is that you're in the process of doing right now, that may perhaps you're getting a little frustrated because things aren't quite adding up and things don't quite look the way that you thought they were going to look in your mind. I'm telling you right now, if you can go from a place of just holding on to your expectations, if you can release those expectations, and if you can learn to operate from a place of belief, because understand this, what you really simply need is just belief. When you operate from that place of belief, trust me on this, everything begins to change. The right people begin to show up. Doors begin to open up. You begin to see things that you couldn't see before because you were so fixated. Let me tell you something. When you're in the middle of a process and you had a certain expectation of what the process was going to be, and you become frustrated in that process, you can have another opportunity present itself, another opportunity that's sitting right there waiting on you, and you would not even see that opportunity because of the fact that you're so fixated on what is not going the way that you thought it was going to go. Because of the fact that you're so fixated on the fact that it's taking longer than what you expected. Because of the fact that you're so fixated on the fact that your bank account, or on the fact that you don't have enough people on your list, or whatever it is that you have, the storyline that you have put in your head, that whatever is happening currently is not perfectly in alignment with the way that you thought it was going to happen. And so let me tell you what happens then. In the midst of your frustration, another opportunity is literally waiting around the corner that can get you to the same outcome and possibly even faster, but you won't be able to see it if you're in the place of frustration. And so I need you to get that. And that's why I keep telling you, you've got to learn to release your expectations. Do me a quick favor right now, for those of you who are tuning in, because I'm going to share something, and I believe that there's some other people that are going to benefit from it. So do me a favor, go ahead and hit the share button. If you didn't already hit the share button, go ahead and hit the share button on this message, because I need some people to get this. I literally need them to get this, because I think what's going to happen is there are going to be some people who are going to be saved from frustration. There are going to be some people who are going to be saved from quitting prematurely. There's some people who are going to be saved from forfeiting their dream. And so what I need you to get is that oftentimes it is going to look nothing, absolutely nothing like you thought. Listen, when I wrote my book, one of the intentions that I set out for myself after I wrote my book was that I did not want to just simply be in a situation where I write my book and I do like a book release, and then afterwards I'm just selling one little book here and one little book there. Because oftentimes for a lot of people who do write their books, unfortunately, that's what happens. They write their book, they do maybe a book release party, and they sell a certain amount of books, and then they end up just basically being, have a whole bunch of books that are sitting in their garage or sitting in their house, and books that they're not selling. Or after that, they're selling just a few books during the course of a year. So one of the intentions that I set out for myself was that when I wrote my book, that I wanted to be able to not just sell books one by one, but I wanted to be able to sell books in bulk. In other words, I wanted to sell books by the hundreds when I did sell my books. And so that's what I envisioned in my mind. And I believe that the way that I was going to make that happen was that, I was going to create like a package, and I was going to send out brochures to certain decision makers with companies, and I was going to let them know about what it is about my book, and let them know about how my book can impact them, and see if I can convince a decision maker to buy my book for their staff, or to buy my book for the people who are working for their company, right? And so that's what I envisioned in my mind. That's what I thought the process was going to look like. Can I just tell you that the process looked nothing like that? The first time that I had a major order for my book was I had a major corporation, a corporation that you probably heard of, a corporation by the name of Office Depot, that placed an order of 600 copies of my book. I want you to understand this. What I envisioned in my mind, what I thought it was going to look like in my mind, it looked nothing like that. And so the way that I got to the point where they purchased 600 copies of my book, I got invited to come and do a little small breakout session for a friend of mine that runs a coaching program. And so she called me up. She said, Andy, listen, I got a coaching program. I got about 25 people in the coaching program. And I would love for you to come in for about an hour. And I want you to go ahead and just do a little quick set real quick to talk to them about the importance of their story and utilizing their story. That's it. I got a phone call from a friend to come and talk to just 25 people. Well, I tell my friend, okay, no problem. I'm going to get in the car. I drive down and I go speak to those 25 people. And I talk about the importance of storytelling. And then in the process, I also share my mom's story. My mom's story that is also the story that ultimately influenced and inspired my book. Now, listen carefully. All I did was go talk to 25 people on behalf of a friend that made a phone call. And then in the process of doing that, I talk about the importance of them using their stories. And then I share the story about my mother and how my mother is an immigrant and she came to the country. She didn't have much. And at a defining moment in her life, she was willing to show up. And by her showing up, it changed the trajectory of her life. And the message that I had was about showing up. Now, it just so happened that in those 25 people, I'm not talking about a big audience of 200 people. I'm not talking about a big audience of thousands of people. I'm talking about an audience of 25 people. In that audience of 25 people, it just so happened that the president at that time of the Office Depot Foundation was sitting right there amongst the 25 people that I was speaking to. Now, that president of the Office Depot Foundation that was sitting there heard me share my story And then her and I had an opportunity to connect. And then we ended up exchanging numbers and we had a conversation. And then we talked about her story. And then I ended up bringing her in as a personal client. That's it. And then it just so happened that a little later on in the year, Office Depot Foundation was putting on an amazing conference that they do on an annual basis. And they were expecting to have 600 people show up to that conference. I get a phone call and they said, hey, you happen to have worked with the president of the Office Depot Foundation. She said some amazing things about you. We're looking for some speakers to speak at this conference. And we were throwing some names about, and your name came up. We would love to have you come and speak at this conference, but we have to tell you, and we got to be honest with you, we do not pay speakers to come and speak at this conference. And so if you're going to come and speak, you're actually going to have to come and speak for free. And so, but we do have an amazing audience of about 600 people. And so I said, okay. And so I'm thinking about them talking about, they said, well, listen, we don't pay speakers to come and speak. However, do you happen to have a book? I said, actually, I do. And they said, well, what's your book about? And I told them, the name of my book is Show Up for Your Life, 7 Principles to Live an Extraordinary Life. And I told them about the story about my mom and how I share other amazing principles to help anybody, regardless of where they're at, to go from living ordinary life to living an extraordinary life. And then I shared the story once again about my mom. And they said, well, listen, we think everybody at the event would really benefit from that book. And so even though we don't pay speakers to come and speak, we would love to order a copy of your book for every single person who is going to be in the audience. As a matter of fact, we'd like to go ahead and place an order for 600 books. Now, I want you to get this. I put the phone down and I am jumping up for joy. I'm so happy. But when I look back at the series of events of how did it happen, it looked absolutely nothing like what I thought it was going to look like. Like the route that I thought that I was going to have to take to get to a place in which a major corporation was going to order hundreds of copies of my book, it looked nothing like that. It looked nothing like me just simply going into a room and talking to 25 people. And it just so happened that an executive for a major corporation was going to be sitting in the room, and then we're going to exchange numbers. And then I was going to get a phone call and invited to come speak at an event. And then the person was going to say, hey, we'd love to order 600 copies of your book. Like that was like way too easy. Like never in a million years would I have envisioned that it was going to happen like that. But listen, that's how it happened. And so what I want you to understand is this, that all the while I always believed that it was possible. I always believed that at some point that I was going to be selling hundreds of copies of my book at one time. However, my expectations and what I thought the process was going to look like, it looked absolutely nothing like what I had in my mind. And so what I want you to get is this, is that you got to be willing to release your expectations. Release your expectations. Do me a favor one more time in the comment section, put hashtag release, hashtag release. I need you to release your expectations. And I'm sharing that with you because of this. You're in the middle right now. You're in the process of pursuing something. And I personally believe that this thing that you're pursuing, that it is going to happen for you. Like this thing that you have been in the process of pursuing, it hasn't necessarily happened for you yet. I personally believe that this thing is going to happen for you. That right now you are currently in a journey, and that ultimately that book that you want to write, the business that you want to scale and take to the next level, that 6 figures that you're trying to make, the 7 figures that you're trying to make, the debt that you're trying to get out of, the weight that you're trying to lose, the fulfilling, happy relationship that you're trying to get in, the diploma that you're trying to achieve, the marriage that you want to have. I personally believe that it is going to happen for you. However, what I also believe is that the way that you think is going to happen is most likely completely off. Like the way that you think that you're going to meet your husband or your wife, you're probably so off. The way that you think that the process is going to work for you to become that best-selling author, you're probably off. The way that you think it's going to happen for you to get to that place where you have gotten to that tipping point in your business, you're probably off. The way that you think it's going to happen for you to start living out your purpose and your calling in life, you're probably off. Listen carefully. I'm telling you right now, chances are that the way that you think it is going to happen is completely off. And what I also know is because of the fact that you get fixated on how it's going to happen, that is what is likely to lead to you having enough frustration that you decide to throw in the towel. So here's what I want to do. I want to save you some grief. I want to save you from giving up prematurely. I want to save you the heartache of looking back at your life only to realize that you could have written the book, that you could have grown the business, that you could have made the career change, that you could have fulfilled this goal, this dream, and this vision. I want to save you the stress and the grief and the burden of looking back and saying to yourself, what if I didn't give up? What if I didn't throw in the towel? What if I would have just keep putting one foot in front of the other and simply trusted the process? And what I'm saying to you is that in order for you to get to where you're wanting to go and to avoid the frustration, right? Not saying there's not going to be any challenges. There's always going to be some challenges. There's always going to be some difficulty. But I'm talking about you avoiding the frustration that leads to you throwing in the towel. You got to release your expectations. And you have to now remove all your focus on being on the process and how you think it's going to happen. And I need you to just simply shift to a new place of just simply believing that it's going to happen. Two very different things. I'm trying to make things happen, and I believe it's going to happen like this, this, this. And when it doesn't happen like this, I get extremely frustrated versus the person that says, you know what? I believe that it's going to happen. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but I'm just going to trust the process and take it one day at a time, headed towards my dreams. I'm not going to judge the process. I'm going to simply just trust the process that eventually I'm going to get there. And I'm telling you, when you operate from that place, amazing things begin to happen. You begin to have the most ridiculous stories that people will look on, and you'll begin to accomplish things, and they'll say, how did you do it? And you say, you know what? If I tell you, you wouldn't believe me because it looks nothing like the way that I expected. As a matter of fact, I'm still trying to make sense of it, but it happened. But all the while, I believed that it could happen. And that's where the lesson is, right? It's to just simply believe that's going to happen, even when you don't know how it's going to happen. And so that's why I just wanted you to remember tonight is I just want you to release the expectations. And so my thing for you right now is I want you to think about whatever goal you have in your mind, no matter how big the goal is, no matter how big the vision is. And what I'm saying to you is hold the dream, hold the vision. No matter how big it is, I want you to hold on to it. But what I want you to release is your expectations as to how it's going to happen. Because most of the time, the way that it's going to come to fruition is going to look nothing like what you envision in your mind. It's going to be so far from what you thought it was going to happen. It is going to blow your mind that the route looks so different, but who cares as long as you get there? And so I just want to remind you one more time to release your expectations. So as I sign off on this message, do me a little quick favor, just one more time, because I need you to get this, and I see you guys have put that, but just one more time, just go ahead and put hashtag release, hashtag release, hashtag release, because you need to release the expectations. Because I firmly believe, listen carefully, I firmly believe that this is in fact your time. The things you've been waiting on, the things you've been sitting on, the things you've been frustrated about, it is going to happen. But you got to get to that place where you release your expectations as far as how it's going to happen and sit into that place of just simply believing that it's going to happen. And once you get to that place, amazing things begin to happen for you. And so I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Let me give a couple of quick shout outs. Johnese, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Valerie, I see you. Chris, thank you for joining me. Carmen, thank you for joining me. My man Gregory Brown, thank you so much for joining me. Chris Davis, I see you. Thank you for joining me. But I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. But I'm hoping that you just got something, because I'm hoping that ultimately I'm going to save you some frustration and save you some grief. Hold on to the dream. Have ridiculous dreams. Have ridiculous visions. I'm talking about the kind of dreams and the kind of visions that are so big that they literally scare you. However, what I want you to do is release as far as how it's going to happen, because oftentimes it is going to happen so different than what you thought in your mind. And so if you could just release the way that you think it's going to happen, I guarantee you this. Listen, I guarantee you this, that amazing things will begin to happen. And you will find ultimately that you will still make it to your destination. You will still realize that goal and that dream, and you will still make that vision become a reality. But you just got to release and trust the process, knowing that you're going to get there. And so once again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and join me for tonight's Show Up for Your Life motivational live stream. Thank you so much. You can find me same time, same place next week. God bless everybody. Have a good night.